American Sports Cavalcade.
And for the 15th year, Don the Snake Prudhomme has returned to Sanair International Dragstrip. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Evans, and welcome to our coverage of the 22nd annual Le Grandnational Molson. Snake, you might have a love-hate relationship with this racetrack once in a while after that big crash, but the fans here, it's all one-sided. Love. They like you, bud.
Well, it's nice to hear that. I think it's because we had a lot of good outings here in Montreal with our funny car for a lot of years. And now on Top Fuel, we just seem to still have the same fans, and we love them. You know, it's really nice to come up here and race with Canadian people.
You're the only repeat Top Fuel winner this year. You won at Columbus, you won at Atlanta. Neither were great tracks. You seem to have the off-track figured out real well.
Well, on some of the slippery tracks, you're absolutely right. I think John Miller and the whole Skull Bandit crew is doing a good job, but you know, it still runs pretty good on some tight tracks. So we're looking forward to this whole rest of the year, and I'd like to get up to the #1 spot.
How much of that success is driving, handling the horsepower properly?
Well, I think mainly it's the setup of the race car. You know, without that, the driver's not anything, and I think the crews on all these cars are doing a great job.
Go get them.
Thanks, Steve.
Right now, Brock Yates is with a funny car driver who has, well, a lot of fond memories here at Sanair. Brock?
Well, Steve, that man is John Force, the driver of the Castrol Oldsmobile. John won his first ever national event here in 1987 and did it again in 1990. But last year, things took a decidedly nasty turn, as these vivid pictures attest. His crew, however, earned their attack team nickname as he was able to return and finish runner-up to Jim White and Roland Leong's Hawaiian Punch. John Force has seen both the good and the bad here at Sanair. And again this year, as last, John is the man to beat. So it is with John Force. Comes into Sanair here as points leader. But I'll tell you what, John, I sort of expected you'd really be reaching out on these guys, that you'd have a bigger lead than you got right now. The competition's tough this year.
Well, it is, but you know, after the beatings we took by the Hawaiian Punch car, we saw what the future held, the big numbers, the ETs, the mile an hours, and that's what we went after. It's hurting us in points, but I think we're gaining on the competition in knowledge, technology, and that's what we're really after.
So what you're saying is that oftentimes the low ETs and the big speeds don't win your races. You got to win races, and they forget the big speeds real fast.
Well, it does, but you have to look at 2 years of winning world championships. We did it with consistency, but when the Hawaiian Punch came along, that's when I saw it was going away, and the fact that they're not here doesn't really change our game plan. Our game plan is to learn how to run fast, and I know the McDonald's team is going to come along. We know what they can do. They're already showing their stuff, and we got Federley over here now, Bernie and Austin Coyle, and it's just going to take them a little time to work their marriage out. And I fight it every day. Every time I look at an ET slip, every time that I lose a race, I'm very upset about it, but Coyle keeps telling me we have to stay consistent with our game plan or we'll get lost. So I have to give them time.
And it's time to put our Canadian coverage literally into high gear. With these one-gear-only Top Fuel races, 5,000 horsepower apiece, you're looking at the Top Fuel side of McDonald's racing, and a blower has banged for Ed McCullum McDonald's car. Big Daddy, he is out of this thing already.
Certainly looks like it. When that blower goes away, it's the end of the race. Even though the engine kept running, the car won't make a run.
Kenny Bernstein will waltz through round number 2. And for Kenny, well, this is a real blessing. He went out in round 1 at Columbus And that was just 2 weeks ago. The race prior, he went out on the semi, so his significant point lead has dwindled away. Let's go to Don Garlits with McCullough's crew chief, Lee Beard.
Terrible, terrible break there, Lee. What do you think might have happened?
I don't know. You know, it puzzles me. It just looked like the thing backfired up through the injector. I really don't know at this point in time.
A hard deal with a large fuel delivery, isn't it?
Well, that has been happening to a bunch of teams. In fact, later on when we get into funny car competition, you'll see Cruz Pedregon in the McDonald's Oldsmobile, and they have had that same malady. So we'll just have to keep watching this problem.
Well, this is really a mystery, Big Daddy. You know, excellent crew chiefs on the McDonald's team. Bernie Federley left, but of course Larry Meyer and Lee Beard topped like guys. But this malady seems to be striking these cars.
I think it's a situation of a lot of fuel delivery, super hot magnetos, and if that fuel and that mag and that blower boost is not exactly right together, you can have this situation, especially a burnout is real tricky.
All right, Kenny Bernstein racing the clock per lane choice. We'll have to see if it's good enough. A 5:06 at 287.9 miles per hour. Bernstein goes to the round of 4 as Ed McCullough breaks on the burnout.
Well, everybody riding on the ragged edge here as Eddie Hill gets ready to come to the line in more round 2 action. He'll go against Joe Amato. Got lane choice, Steve Evans, but only by a wink of the clocks.
Well, so far, lane choice has not been a factor. In fact, in round number 1 earlier today, some of the guys would take the left lane, some would take the right. It was split just about 50-50. There you're on board the Joe Amato car, the camera high up on the wing. Of course, Amato is number 2 in points to Kenny Bernstein and closing the 4-time Winston champion. Amato from Old Forge, Pennsylvania, only has 1 victory this year, and that came in Houston, Texas. Don Prudhomme is the only driver with 2. Now, Eddie Hill from Wichita Falls, Texas, you talk about a wild ride. Yesterday, in qualifying, the Hill car in the near lane all by himself. Everything looked real good until right at the finish line when the engine blows up. A piece of debris punctures a tire, and Eddie Wheel is on a fiery 3-wheeled ride. Do not try this at home, ladies and gentlemen. Well, a later examination proved that indeed a piece of connecting rod probably punctured that tire. They repaired the car after what was then a track record of 5 seconds flat on that fiery run. So Eddie Hill now up against Joe Amato. Well, I'll tell you, you couldn't ask for 2 tougher competitors or 2 more different style of operations than Eddie Hill and Joe Amato. The Hills spend almost all year on the road. Joe Amato, he goes back to Old Forge, PA, where he pays attention to his huge automotive business. Now, oh, and fire starting to come out of the Amato motor, and you see Eddie Hill streak by. What a comeback for Hill. A 5:04, 279 miles an hour. Amato loses at a 5:23. Now, this car is running better than it has in quite a while. They do not have their alcohol funny car here. They normally run in tandem, and maybe that has something to do with it. That says, no. He poo-poos that. He said, we never brought the alcohol car here to begin with. So Austin will be up against Al Segrini, who won 3 national events in funny cars and has only been competing really overseas in Germany, England, and Finland, and some hired rides over there. But with this Billy Lynch car, crew chief by Big Jim Dunn, a great funny car racer himself, former Top Fuel star. They've had an awful lot of bad luck with this car, broken a lot of parts and pieces, but here they are in the 2nd round in Montreal, the best it has performed. Pat Austin, of course, won the Phoenix race this year. Oh, Austin has a problem. Don.
Yeah, he bangs a blower, and a good thing, too, because Segrini dropped the cylinder. He didn't run real good.
No, he didn't. A 5:25 at 281 miles an hour. The low qualifier, Pat Austin, also has some supercharger problems.
Yet more Top Fuel round 2 action, and this is the Michael Brotherton Darrell Gwynn automobile out of Florida. He will go against Don the Snake Prudhomme. Big Daddy, good matchup here.
It certainly is. Both these cars have been running real well. Prudhomme does have a slight performance advantage. I would say 5:05 to 5:11. Wouldn't you, Brock?
Yeah, and he also snuck into the 4s in qualifying, Steve.
Yeah, he did, and he beat Jack Ostrander in round number 1. The Snake, as usual, is hot in Montreal. And he's up against Michael Brotherton. Michael has not won a race in the Darrell Gwynn car. He's come very close. 1 runner-up finish this year. And I'll tell you, that car is ready. Ken Benny, the crew chief, has been trying a lot of things, seems to have found a combination that he's happy with. You want to hear a batting average? Don Prudhomme, in 14 years here, has been in 11 final rounds and has won 7 times. All of those victories coming in a funny car. Runner-up last year to Kenny Bernstein. Ooh, good drag race. Brotherton starts to lose the motor, maybe a little oil under the tires, and Don Prudhomme goes to the final four at a 5:09, rather conservative, 274 miles an hour. Brotherton a 5:15. It appeared that the engine was just starting to go away a bit, Big Daddy.
It certainly did. Brotherton took just a very slight advantage at the starting line, not hardly even enough to talk about. The snake was plenty quick. But then you see it start to happen. Brotherton starts to fall back just a little bit, and then some blue smoke, which indicates some burned pistons, and the oil starts to come out of Brotherton's car. Snake car moves quickly into the lead, and Brotherton's day is ended.
So that sets up the pairings for the final four. Don the Snake Prudhomme will go against Eddie Hill. Eddie has lane choice thanks to setting low ET in that second round. Al Segrini, a bit of a surprise, will go against Kenny Bernstein, and Bernstein will have lane choice.
We go from the thunder of Top Fuel to the precision of Pro Stock. And there is one of the best cars in the world. The machine itself has won the championship the last 2 years with Darrell Alderman on board. New driver Scott Jeffreyon has yet to score with it. Now, those of you at home who recognize that yellow car, the Pennzoil Pontiac of Jerry Ekman, you say, oh boy, this will be a heck of a race. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Ekman, who has won 3 races this year, leads the points by a huge margin, has had horrible problems here in Canada. He finally got the car qualified well down the list in the 11th spot. Got very lucky in round number 1 when Bob Glidden, who was a much quicker qualifier, had some problems. So you see Mike Sullivan, the crew chief for the Dodge Daytona. You're on board with Scott Jeffreyon. So Ekman struggling the way he is. Brock Yates might have to give the nod to Scott here.
Well, Jeffreyon definitely overdue for a win here with this automobile because, as you said earlier, it was a monster for the last couple of seasons.
Jeffreyon has lane choice to beat John Nobile in round 1, and he has taken the near lane because the far lane has a bump in it. It's been almost impossible for the Pro Stock cars to get down. You're riding with Jeffreyon. He is all over the racetrack. Jeffreyon trying to stay in the racing groove as he pulls the handles on the 5-speed. He got 2 loose. Ekman takes advantage. Colonel Bill Orndorff says yes. 7.38 seconds, 188 miles an hour. Jeffreyon falling way off that car's potential at 7.60 seconds, 184 miles an hour.
Okay, the next pair of Pro Stockers doing their burnouts in the near lane. That is Jim Yates out of Virginia, who's come on the scene in a big way this season against the veteran Gordy Rivera. We'll see them race in a moment, but first, let's go to Steve.
Well, Jerry Ekman continues to stay alive in his Pontiac, but that's about all.
Just alive. Yeah, it wasn't a very good run. It's tough figuring this track out. There's only a couple of guys out here that got it figured out, obviously, because everyone's having trouble. I raced some of the fast cars, Bob Glidden, and then just Scott right now, and they've had more trouble than me, so I'm just lucky.
Would you like to get out of that far left lane?
I sure would. That's been the real nemesis, that far left lane, but I can't get lane choice because I can't run fast in it.
I don't think a 738 is going to get it either.
No, I don't either. Thanks, Steve.
So Jerry Ekman obviously frustrated as we go back down to the starting line, and Gordy Rivera, as we said earlier, been around this sport a long time, Steve.
Yeah, he operates a performance store in Yuma, Arizona. First-rate driver, good off the starting line. Up against Jim Yates, runner-up at the opening race, the Winter Nationals out in Pomona, California. He and his wife, Tony, raced his car out of Fairfax Station, Virginia. And Yates, boy, I tell you, he is flying. He qualified number 7. He beat Frank Iaconio in round number 1. Consistently has been right in the mid-720s, and it's a good one. Rivera maybe a slight edge off the mark. But the big Bob Ingalls horsepower pays off for Jim Yates. Boy, I mean, that was about as close to a dead heat as you'll see. 7:33 at 189 miles an hour. Drops Gordy Rivera, who ran a 7:32. Actually had a quicker elapsed time, but it was Yates, actually, as we looked again, Big Daddy, who had the starting line advantage.
You're certainly right, Steve. Rivera was late, and it cost him the race. He ran a 7:32, 190 miles an hour. He was better than Yates all the way down the course, except on that starting line, and that's all it took for Yates to be the winner. Rivera will be practicing on his reaction timer from now on.
Well, Jerry Ekman says you really need to have that nearer right lane to win here.
I'll tell you what, he just won in the left, so don't take that for granted. He knows how to get down it, and he's won a lot of races this year, so you got to give him credit. And I tell you, it's going to be a tough race.
Already is.
We're looking forward to it.
And I'll tell you, there isn't anybody in drag racing, including yours truly, that just can't wait for Ricky Smith to win his first national event. He's been runner-up so many times, he's starting to wear out the bridesmaid's gown. But I don't know if that's going to happen against this man, Bruce Allen, because Allen has lane choice, has been running in the 720s. Unless Ricky can get one of his big hole shots, which we know he is capable of, Big Daddy Ricky Smith has got an uphill battle, especially in that far lane.
Well, Steve, you'll never have a better chance. He comes into this round with a 727 to Allen's 724.
Ooh, and we saw Smith hit that bump a little bit, knock the car off killer, and he shuts it off. Bruce Allen goes to the final four at a 730, 190 miles an hour, matching speed with the best of them here in this field. Smith flicks it up, still goes through at 115 miles an hour, and wasn't even on the power till half track. All right, we got a great story coming up for you now. Remember Don Garlits talking to Alban Gauthier from right here in the province of Quebec? He not only qualified well in the number 8 spot, he beat Larry Morgan round 1, and I guarantee you Warren Johnson, even though he's one of the top cars in the country, can't be looking down his nose at Alban Gauthier, Don.
You're certainly right, Steve. If anybody can get down that far lane, it's Alban, because this is his home track.
And he's got Morris Johnson Jr. as a crew chief, who won here as a driver in 1988. But Brock, Warren Johnson may make a whole lot of horsepower. He proved that here this weekend, but still, he's got to be concerned.
No question, but still, remember, this car was the number 1 qualifier, 719. The car runs at 190 miles an hour like you and I ride our bicycles just routinely. So this is a rocket-fast Oldsmobile.
Warren Johnson has already won it. Gauthier has a problem at the starting line, and Warren Johnson completely out of shape. What a break, Don.
Oh, Alban's chance to go to the final four, and something happened to him on the starting line. What a disappointment.
And what a break for Warren Johnson. I could have beat him in that far lane with any kind of a car. And you know how I drive, Yates.
Oh, boy, what a tough break for Alban. And the fans, they were really up because he was their local favorite, and they really felt he had a chance.
Here we see Warren Johnson lead the line. Poor old Gauthier's sitting there like a beach flounder. And then Johnson's car goes out of control and nearly crosses the center line. Has to backpedal it and only runs an 8-second ET. What a chance this was for Gauthier.
It sure was, but he missed it as Warren Johnson moves into the final four against Bruce Allen. And I don't have to tell you who has a lane choice after that 8-second pass by Johnson. Jim Yates versus Jerry Eckman, and Yates has a lane choice. I would guess he'll take the near lane.
The tires smoking, ground pounding AA fuel funny cars. And in the near lane, the quickest car in history. Cruz Pedregon, the Larry Minor Racing McDonald's Oldsmobile, holds the national record at 5:10. Won the Houston race, but they've been having some of those blower explosions like we saw on their team car, Ed McCullough, Don Garlits.
They certainly have, and they never know from run to run if they're actually going to get off the starting line. Until they figure that out, it's really a tricky situation.
And he's up against Tom Hoover, the Hooves, who won a national event this year to the delight of everyone that knows he and his family, the Arizona Nationals, the second race of the year, out in obviously the state of Arizona. Tom Hoover, Maple Grove, Minnesota. His father, now in his mid-80s, George Hoover, still doing the engine work on this car. What a story he is. Cruz Pedregon, well, he's got Larry Meyer as a crew chief. There's none better. Cruz out of Moore Park, California, a car based in San Jacinto, California. So Pedregon, who has won in alcohol dragsters, now has won in nitro funny cars, a bright young talent. But he still doesn't know all the tricks that a guy like Hoover possesses, and sometimes some of those tricks are given on the starting line. Hoover, a little bit of an advantage, but some blue smoke out of the motor, blue smoke up the tires of Pedregon. Pedregon hangs in there. 5.39 second elapsed time, 274 miles an hour. He moves to the final four. Well, here is the car of the year so far. Al Hoffman, Alan Helen Hoffman, crew chief by Tom Anderson. You're on board with him. He has won the last 2 races on the NHRA Winston Tour. Now, in this part of the country, they invented the term hat trick. This is hockey land, and that's what Hoffman's looking for. And trying to stop him will be the 1991 Rookie of the Year, Del Worsham. Well, that's not much visibility, Don Garlits, out of one of these things.
Not enough for me, Steve-O.
That's why you never drove one, right?
You bet.
All right, Al Hoffman from the state of Florida. He's not there much, but when he is, he goes in and kills all the snakes that got in the house while he was gone, and I'm not kidding. Del Worsham from Orange, California. His father, Chuck, does most of the work on this car. They run on a real low budget, but they run really well.
They sure do. very effective team as they come in here against what is right now the strongest, most consistent running funny car on the circuit. There you see Helen Hoffman giving her husband the last high sign as they get ready. They move into the staging lights. Could be a good drag race.
Should be. They're pre-staged. The top light's on in the tree. Hoffman now gingerly moves his car in. Hoffman, little clutch dust in the cockpit. Nice straight run. And he defeats Del Worsham. Al Hoffman goes to the Final Four for the third race in a row at a 5:43. 266 miles an hour. He must have clicked it just a little bit early, Don Garlits. Not a lot of speed.
Well, he's saving parts. He remembers the old days when he didn't have very much money for all those parts.
That's right. They're still not breaking the bank with that particular car. And here's a guy you talk about breaking the bank. He should have one of those stickers that says driver carries no cash. Jerry Caminito.
And not many parts.
No, he does not. And quite the opposite, though, in the near lane. As we look at John Forrest's car, the Castro GTX machine. Forrest, heck, he'll put a motor on the moon and has just to win a round.
Yeah, he does. And he said, we talked to him earlier, and he said, you know, the big difference with me and a whole lot of other guys in this circuit is money. He said, we can use the parts, and it makes a big difference.
But let's not forget either that Forrest is not one of those silver spoon guys. John earned what he's got in the sport of drag racing through hard work and total dedication to the racing and to his sponsors. No one loves the sport more than Jerry Caminito. That's the only reason I can think of a guy would just pour literally everything he has into what he's doing. John Forrest, he is still the man to beat. The two-time and current Winston champion. He may hear the thunder of the Al Hoffmans and the Cruz Pedregon as they come up through the point standings, but nobody's going to count that man out. Not with his driving skill on slick racetracks and guys like Austin Coyle and Bernie Federle on his payroll. Little clutch dust coming into the compartment. That's good. That means the clutch is doing its job. It's slipping just enough to where John Forrest gets down the racetrack. Austin Coyle, he never shows any emotion if he ran 5 flat. He does run 5.41 seconds at 274 miles an hour. A very calculated performance, I'd say, Don.
That's why you pay the big bucks to get that performance.
Absolutely. Kenny Bernstein, well, he is pulling the world's fastest dragster, the 301 mile an hour, 300-inch beauty, known as the Budweiser King, towards the staging lights. He'll face off with Al Segrini in the Top Fuel Final Four. But first up, we've got to finish this round of funny cars, and Mark Oswald has got a big break here. His competition, Dale Creasy's car, driven by Gary Bolger, cannot make the call. They blew an engine trying to backpedal through a lot of tire smoke in round 1. Now, Oswald qualified well, number 6, but that's the last time we saw him go down the racetrack, Big.
Certainly is. This is his second break. He had a single in round 1 when Johnny West couldn't make the call, and he only ran 10.95 smoking the tire. So it's time for him to pick the performance of this car up, because sooner or later, Steve, he's going to have to race somebody.
Oh, boy, and look at this again, Brock, coming off the pad.
Oh, absolutely. He loses it one more time, and he'll coast through the lights. And at 9.16 seconds, this is competition eliminator time that he's putting down here for Mark Oswald. But still, he floats on, and I say floats into the Final Four. So Oswald will face Al Hoffman. But Al has lane choice on a timing he could measure on a sundial. Cruz Pedregon and John Forrest a whole lot closer. Pedregon has lane choice, but that's going to be a drag race.
Oh, I can't wait for that one. Well, here's Eddie Hill, Ursi helping him get into all of the wardrobe it takes to stay safe in one of these race cars. Eddie the Thrill will be up against Don the Snake in the Top Fuel Final Four coming up.
We can tell which kind of category he wants to see race, and in fact, he's going to see some of it right now, Steve Evans.
Yep, there is Don Prudhomme putting on the no-neck sock to face off with Eddie Hill. He's got a few moments, though, to collect his thoughts because Kenny Bernstein and Al Segrini will be the first pair here in the round of 4. And that is the blow and another blower pop, Don Garlits.
I don't know what these guys are doing, but the car was doing well then. The tires were smoking. There was no reason for that blower to pop. It must have dropped a valve or hung a valve or something, Steve.
Oh, boy, I'll tell you, Kenny Bernstein is again the benefactor. Bernstein, who had Ed McCullough bang one alongside him in round number 2, now Brock gets another solo, but you know he'll run hard.
No question about that. He definitely wants lane choices. The NHRA safety crew pushes Al Segrini off the racetrack, And notice that he rolled the car out of the lane right away and got off on the edge of the track, unless he was going to drop some oil in the racing surface.
Very professional of Segrini.
Absolutely. Now, Kenny Bernstein not only wants lane choice, they need to know if the changes they've made to this car between the two rounds are going to work, right, Don?
Absolutely. Dale Armstrong and Wes Cerny, every run is an important run. It's just like a test. And I talked to Dale earlier, and he said they just have a hard time with this track, and they need all the practice they can get on.
All right, it's kind of fun sometimes when a guy has a single run like this because you can hear the stages of the clutch. You can hear a lot of things that maybe isn't noticeable to the ear when there's two of them side by side. Here's Bernstein. Let's just listen to it. Ooh, you could hear the clutch in that final pace just pull the motor down, and the car charges to 290 miles an hour, 4.98 seconds. Don's at the starting line with the losing crew chief.
Well, Jim, what do you think happened to it?
Oh, we put a new blower, new set of heads on it, so probably hung a valve on us, everything new.
Well, there is the moment of truth for Al Segrini. Did well all afternoon, and then suddenly here it goes. Kaboom! The same thing that happened to McCullough and Austin. Let's go to Big Daddy Don Garlits.
Looks like you're saving the best to last.
Oh, that was a little too strong, Don. We didn't expect it to be that strong. It whisked the tires early there and just about got away on us. Well, luckily though, we had a single, but it'll make it interesting in the final. Thanks.
Well, you bet. Interesting. Let's go to Steve.
Kenny Bernstein, as you well know, that is the hardest this car has run all weekend long. A 498. Could you feel that power?
Oh, I sure could, Steve. It shook pretty good, too, out there. I got a pretty good headache going. I'm a little dizzy right now, but it did run hard in the middle. It's probably a little too much for what we had to work with.
And the big red car may be putting a hex on the competition. You've had two singles in a row.
It's one of those days you can't believe. I feel bad for Billy Lynch and Al Segrini. They've come a long way. You hate winning like that, but you got to take them. That's the way it is in racing.
Well, you're going to get Don Prudhomme or Eddie Hill in the final. Any favorites? Anybody you'd particularly like to race?
No, they're both tough competitors. They'll be as hard on us as anybody else up there. It'll be a real good run in the final.
Well, we'll find out right now who will, in fact, face Kenny Bernstein in the finals. That is Don Prudhomme getting ready to go against Eddie the Thrill Hill. And this should be a good one, Steve.
I think so, Brock. And Don Garlits, it'll be tough to get lane choice away from Bernstein with that 498.
They're certainly going to be trying. If anybody has the potential, I would say it's Prudhomme because he's the only other car that's run a 4 besides Pat Austin. But Hill might step up. Who knows?
That's right. Eddie Hill, who's come back from that big fire in qualifying. Don Prudhomme, who always runs well in Montreal. Maybe it's his French surname. Who's to say? Oh, Prudhomme with the advantage off the mark. Eddie Hill tries to come by, but can't quite do it. Prudhomme at 5:06. We have a repeat of 1 year ago here at Le Grandnational Molson. Don Prudhomme and Kenny Bernstein. Bernstein will have the lane choice. Now, Eddie Hill ran a 5:10, and he had a little faster speed, and I think you could actually see that at the finish line. Let's look at the replay. Hill was catching him, Brock.
He sure was. They had a good drag race going. And don't forget, while Prudhomme was in the 4s, Hill, with that blower explosion, was a wink away from being in the 4s. So this was a very, very even drag race. As you can see, though, it's the big power on the other end that takes it for the Snake by almost a full car length. So what does that do? Well, as Steve said, that sets up a repeat of last year. Don Prudhomme, Kenny Bernstein, Bernstein with lane choice. And remember, Bernstein won it on a real close one last year.
When the immortal words of that great Frenchman, what we have here is deja vu again. Talking about Yogi Berra, of course. Snake, it's a repeat of last year.
It sure is, but I saw they clicked that 498 off. We're going to have us a tough race in the final. And, you know, I knew Kenny would be tough here, but, you know, so is Eddie Hill. And, you know, everybody's tough here right now.
Your driving has been razor sharp. You're going to keep that up.
Well, you know, we're trying to. You know, a guy gets my age, so it's kind of tough. But, yeah, I'm going to try to. You know, that's the key up there right now. And I'm just going to try and do my part because the guys are doing such a good job with the Skull Bandit Wins car.
The only bad news is no lane choice, and that didn't seem to bother you that time.
No, it really doesn't. And we're just going to go for it in the final. That's all you can do. We'll see what it'll turn. Thank you.
Right now it is Final Four time in Pro Stock.
Sure is, Steve. And we got a good one here. Jim Yates versus Jerry Ekman. Ekman, as we said earlier, has had a real problem all weekend. He just hadn't been able to hook up. Qualified 11th. But Yates, on the other hand, Big Daddy, has been real strong.
Yates has been very, very consistent all day, and you heard Ekman earlier say he just can't get out of that far lane, and that's right where Yates has put him, in the far lane. So I imagine that's on his mind pretty strong right now.
And it shows us one thing, Don. Top fuelers go down that lane, no problem whatsoever. When you get a short wheelbase pro stock car, it's another ballgame.
Certainly is. It's a different type of a clutch tire combination and power application, and it just doesn't apply to top fuel racing.
All right, here is Mr. Yates. He's in the near lane, a pair of General Motors products. Pontiac Trans Am's a pair. Jerry Ekman, well, he needs a little Mark Oswald's luck. Good start. Over that bump goes Ekman. Ekman is mastering that lane, but doesn't have the power. Tony Yates says yes. Jim Yates goes to the final for the second time this year, to 732 189 to a 733 190. Classic pro stock racing.
Well, as you can see, it's a little bit better light for Yates than it is for Ekman, but only by a little bit. It's Yates maintaining a good, solid lead all the way down the drag strip. That big bump in the far lane doesn't appear to bother Ekman. It's just a matter of better horsepower, that Bob Engel prepared engine in the Pontiac Trans Am of Yates that carries him on to victory and into his second final of the season.
Here's the man in the driver's seat, literally. Bruce Allen, number 7 in the world last year, one of his worst performances ever, looking to move up. This is the first time this year that this car has had winner written on it. All right, pre-stage, you'll hear him bring those RPMs up, and they just sidestep the clutch. It's a violent kind of motorsport. It shocks the tires, it shocks the rear end. It's a wonder they stay together as well as they do. A nice hole shot for Warren Johnson. But Bruce Allen daylights him at the far end, a 729 190 to a 749 190. Let's have another look at that one. I think you can clearly see Warren Johnson gets off the mark first by about 0.04 of a second.
But it's not enough, Steve, because the man in the Chevrolet Lumina, that yellow rare Morrison automobile, shows the way most of the way down the drag strip. Johnson stays in there with that very strong Oldsmobile in a lane that has caused problems, but it apparently is just raw horsepower and good stout driving on the part of Bruce Allen that takes him into the finals against Jim Yates. ET of 729 will give him lane choice against Jim Yates, who will go in there with a 733. So it'll be Bruce Allen seeking his first win of the year against the man who has been already a runner-up.
Here we go. Al Hoffman versus Mark Oswald, Final Four funny car competition. You gotta like Hoffman, Don Garlits.
Yeah, you sure do, because it's time for Oswald to do something.
Absolutely. Hoffman's on board here. Totally competent. Crew Chief Tom Anderson, I'm sure. Well, I can't imagine that he'd try to set the world on fire here. He knows that Oswald is struggling.
Well, he's been steady all day long. You know, 541, 543, right in that range. I got an idea they're going to leave it alone and just get down the racetrack. No funny deals, and hope that that'll get a lane choice for the final.
Okay, you're on board with Hoffman. So far, so good. You're not on fire, you're right side up. In funny car racing, those are two good things to be. Ellen Hoffman says another good thing to be is in the final round, where they're going at 541, 263 miles an hour. Oswald, another difficult trip, 584, not quite even 200 miles an hour. Up next, Cruz Pedregon, who this year in some ways has been the nemesis of the man he's about to face, John Brute Forrest.
And in fact, this man, Cruz Pedregon, will have lane choice of 539 as against a 541 for John Forrest, which is exactly what Hoffman just ran. So it could be interesting. So as we ride with John Forrest as he completes his burnout, let's go to the other end with Steve and Al Hoffman.
Well, Al, this is hockey country, where they invented the term hat trick, and you potentially have one going.
Well, with #1 qualifier and never losing a final round, we feel pretty confident about this deal.
You got a hole in the body right over here on the right-hand side. What happened?
Yeah, it shot a spark plug out right in the lights, but it's okay. We got plenty of parts. We'll fix it. We'll be back.
Talented team looking for 3 in a row.
Unbelievable. The spark plug rocketed right through the hood. Just an example of the enormous power and turbulence generated under the hood of one of these funny cars.
Well, they're a wild ride to be sure as we see the body come up on John Force's car. Still weighing heavily on John and that entire Force attack team crew is this moment a month ago, the Mid-South Nationals, Memphis, Tennessee. Alongside of Al Hoffman. Force in the far lane, explodes the motor, the car lights up, The parachutes come off, the tires blow into the fence, and his troubles weren't over yet. As he slides down into the dirt, the car will flop over onto its side, and miraculously, John Force got out of it with nothing more than a blister on his right hand. But since that time, they have made a lot of changes to this car. Experimental. NHRA said it was okay, John, due to things like this. He now has a body ejection system that will blow that body off the car so he doesn't have to hit the wall to get rid of the fire. He's got he calls it the Safety Safari's firefighting funny car. He's going to help him out by fighting some of his own fires. They hope they don't have to test it, but if they do, well, we may know before the season is out. Cruz Pedregon on the left side of your screen. John Force over in the far lane. The funny cars have had no trouble with that lane. Pro Stocks have. All right, this is Force's view. So far, so good. It's a beautiful run. Where's the Pedregon car? About 2 car lengths back. It is John Force at a 5:38, 278 miles an hour to Pedregon's losing 5:48. Let's go to the starting line. Don Garlits with Austin Coyle. Big?
I guess I have to say, when the chips are down, Austin, you know how to make it happen.
Well, I'll tell you, we've been struggling with a new combination here. We had some big problems at Memphis. We're really on the right track now. We've got it running smooth on the other end. Little help from Bernie Federley in that department and a few other friends. And we're on the way to a third championship, I hope.
Well, that's a step in the right direction for sure, because not only did they move into the finals, but they disposed of Pedregon, who was their closest rival in the point standings. Let's have another look at that race. It is almost even off the line. Good reaction on the time on the part of both drivers, but it's John Force in the far lane with just a solid Force-like pass. He's used to driving on all kinds of racetracks, so the kind of variable conditions here at Sanair didn't bother him a bit. Nor will it probably bother his rival in the finals, Al Hoffman, who was also an old pro in this kind of business and had been around for years. But John Force will have lane choice.
You know, John, Al Hoffman loves to say he's never been beaten in a final. What have you got to say to that?
Well, he's a good guy. He's done a real good job, but Coyle and my guys and Bernie, they're doing a real good job, and this car is starting to show what I spent my money on, and I'm very excited. So whoever day it is, we'll see, but anybody can be beat.
You can pick the lanes. You've got it.
Yeah, I don't know if that's critical. Cruz put us over in the other lane, but the racetrack's starting to come around and starting to cool down. That's our deal, and we're getting plenty tough. It's going to get tougher down the road to beat us.
Well, John Force not laughing a whole lot. He's serious, and he's going to be even more serious when he faces off against Al Hoffman. That is John Medlin working on the Don Prudhomme car. They're getting ready to go against their old rival, Kenny Bernstein, in the Top Fuel Finals. Stick with us. We'll be back at Montreal.
For Joe Amato's crew, unfortunately, here in Sanair, Quebec is on the road again. They have been defeated. They will be falling back a little bit in the points. They could really be in trouble if Kenny Bernstein should beat Don Prudhomme and pick up another 200 points. You just saw Ray Alley working on the computer. There's Wes Cerny, the man responsible for the big top end charge in this car. And in my opinion, that's what's winning races for him here today. That little bit of luck. Right now, though, it is time for the Pro Stock final round. And it will be Bruce Allen against Jim Yates, 2 non-winners this year. Yates, as Brock said earlier, has been in a final round, the Winter Nationals.
I've tuned up cars that were low ET. The meat made them go slower. But, you know, they'll look at the tapes and they'll decide, well, this needs a little of this, the clutch needs a little something. And they will definitely make slight changes.
Oh, and it's a red light for Jim Yates. He may have been oversight for this Pro Stock final. He left too soon. Automatic disqualification. Ooh, he'd have had a hard time running with a 7:27 from Bruce Allen at 190 miles an hour. And Allen also had a terrific reaction time of .45. If you're a funny car fanatic, boy, have you come to the right place. This is the final round here at the NHRA Le Grandnational Molson. Doing his burnout in the BDS car blower drive service, that is Al Hoffman. Likewise, to accomplish the tire smoldering burnout procedure, is John Brute Force, the Castro GTX Oldsmobile. And we have one of the rare times we've got dueling in-car cameras. Both of them equipped with the latest in electronics from Diamond P Sports and TNN. Should be an interesting view. Earlier, I had a chance, as I did with Pro Stock, to have a chat with both of these drivers and see exactly what their thoughts were going into the final. Al, you have had such great success in final rounds. Does that give you a little extra measure of confidence?
Yeah, we're pretty confident about this. I know John's got lane choice and he ran 38, but I think we can run as well, if not better. And, you know, if both lanes look pretty good, we can get through them. Tommy's real tricky on these type of tracks, so we're pretty confident.
You know, your opponent, Al Hoffman, loves to say, hey, I've never been beaten in a final, John.
Well, I'm proof of that, Steve. I've been beaten before anybody can. He's done well. He's won some races, but I think his deal's over. It's time for us to step up. We've been showing that all weekend.
You know, Brock, we haven't heard a lot of laughing and a lot of joking. John Force is so famous for that in our TV coverage. He's just deadly serious.
I think he is. I think that you're mentioning the fact that Hoffman has never been beaten in a final, and that Hoffman has come on so strong in the last 2 seasons after years and years and years of very limited success. I think John's really feeling the pressure, and I think he'd really like to put it on Hal to kind of quiet him down.
And don't forget that fire in Memphis. John Force has not forgotten that incident.
Oh, boy, who could? That will live with him forever. Al Hoffman, there's his end car. There's John Force's end car. Who will be the funny car champion of Le Grandnational Molson? We'll know in about 5 seconds. Force left first. Force had the advantage, maybe practicing on that little tree work. Then John Force has won here in Canada, the scene of his first ever victory some years ago. A 5:34 defeats a 5:42. Hoffman slowed to only 264 miles an hour. Maybe something wrong there. Don?
5:34, you had the thing tuned up. The track seemed to cool down a little bit, and she held it, Austin.
It's obvious you know how this game is played. Been doing it longer than me. Yeah, everything seems to be working well for us today. John's been driving his best. He had to save it to get us lane choice first round, and Bernie's being a big help to this team now that he's worked in here. And like I said a few rounds ago, I think we're on our way to our 3rd championship.
Congratulations again, Austin. Brock?
Well, Big, you can see right there is where John Force kissed goodbye to Al Hoffman's 2-race winning streak and his undefeated streak in finals. It was John Force all the way as he put it on Al Hoffman, who gave a good performance, perhaps something going wrong a little bit at the far end. And fire from Force's car does not hurt him. Let's go down to the winner.
Well, John, he's been beaten now.
Yeah, well, we finally did, and got to give credit to Coyle and Bernie and the TAC crew. They did their job, and it was a good old racetrack. It cooled down there, got good, and this old heap just got out. She humped, she picked the front end up, she trucked down through there. I'm excited. I want to thank, I know we're live here, I want to thank Castrol and Jolly Rancher, Oldsmobile, the Wax Shop, Dorman, all my guys, Craftsman, Mallory, just for doing a good job, guys. You're great, and I love you. And we ain't dead from Memphis. We're just back and tougher and meaner.
Nobody ever thought you were dead. Brock?
Well, I think he's smiling now after he put it on Al Hoffman. So John Force is back, no doubt about that, as we get ready to go to the Top Fuel Final.
And it is a repeat of last year. Brock, you and I were here. One of the most exciting, emotional Top Fuel Final rounds I can ever remember. Bernstein won it by 100th of a second. Neither driver knew for sure who had won when they crossed the finish line, and the two actually embraced at the other end. It was one of those races that, well, it was a shame there had to be a loser.
That's right, and there really wasn't a loser for all intents and purposes other than in the record books, because they were virtually identical times.
I talked to both of them a minute ago. Kenny, we know your car can run with anybody now. What about you? You've been a little under the weather.
Yeah, I'm a little bit puny this week. Evidently, last couple of days I've been catching a little touch of the flu, but let me tell you, it doesn't matter when you get in there and strap up and turn the motor on. You forget about all that stuff real fast.
John, it's been a hot, hard day. Fatigue can be a factor in this sport.
Yeah, we're not running 500 miles, and I was in Michigan last weekend, and I was talking with Harry Gant, who's a buddy of mine, and he said, how come you guys get out of the car, you're and he was kind of making fun out of it in a way, but, it just kind of takes your breath away. It's something that one has to experience to really appreciate, the G-force that we get, and just, basically you're holding your breath the whole quarter of a mile.
I know just what you're talking about. Two very evenly matched cars. Kenny Bernstein comes into this round with a 498, but remember, in qualifying, the Snake went 496, so he's capable. He knows the racetrack. This could be anybody's race.
The final pair of the 22nd annual NHRA Le Grandnational Molson are about to let it happen. Kenny Bernstein, John Prudhomme. We've been talking here in the booth. None of us would wager a bob either way on this deal. Bernstein and the Snake. Bernstein, far lane. The big top-end power of Kenny Bernstein has won it. 292 miles an hour, a 503 for Kenny to a 506 for Don Prudhomme. Prudhomme's speed, though, only 271, and that spelled the difference. Don Garlits is at the starting line with one happy crew chief.
503, but something flew off of that thing.
Yeah, looks like it lost the blower belt, but it must have lost it, you know, right at the right time because it ran 292. But that was a heck of a race, yeah. I mean, every time we race Snake, man, I mean, you got to give him all the credit in the world. He's a tough competitor, you know, so we didn't know what was going to happen coming up here. But,
okay, congratulations.
Well,
let's go down to Steve at the end with Kenny.
Oh, I am with Kenny Bernstein. As he said in that interview, he hasn't been feeling real well, a touch of the flu, but I have a feeling he just found a cure for the flu or the common cold or whatever he may have, and it's called beating Don the Snake Prudhomme. They thought they saw something blow off the car. Can you remember the blower belt? It is on, and you have won, my friend, at a 503. But first, you've got to shake hands with the Snake. These two love to race each other. Great job, Kenny.
Hey, thank you, Steve. Great. Don did a great job. I'm happy for Dale and Wes and the team, the Budweiser King, all of these Quaker State Mac 2 and Dynamax. Really, TNN, we love being on here.
We love having you. Did you see him at all? It was a heck of a drag race.
It's hard to see in these cars, Steve. You sit way back and so low with the sides on them, you can't see. You feel. I felt the Snake over there. I knew he was there. A heck of a race.
Well, we're going to show everybody at home a replay. Brock?
Well, Steve, we could almost show them last year's race as well, because this event is a virtual carbon copy of last year's race, and the result was almost the same, except possibly some breakage at the far end, Big Daddy.
Well, both cars were very evenly matched. Here we see the header flames coming out, and what we thought earlier was a blower belt was actually part of Kenny Bernstein's wing element.
Well, it happened at the far end, didn't bother the result as Kenny Bernstein and Dale Armstrong celebrate their second victory of the year and also an increase in their point standing. For Steve Evans and Big Daddy, I'm Brock Yates. Thanks for joining us.
The executive producer for American Sports Cavalcade is Harvey M. Palish. Produced and directed by John B. Mullen.
Stop the tire, you know, and drive up.
Hey, guys, get in here and get happy. Come here.
The American Sports Cavalcade is a presentation of Diamond P Sports.